Joshua! Wow! Anthony Joshua! In an unbelievable round
I am the greatest.
Roshid, I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
It's showtime!
Hello and welcome back to the Vavel Boxing Podcast. Today is our weekend preview for all the fights coming up at the weekend, which is, of course, the AJ versus Kubrat Pulev fight at Wembley Arena with fans back in and a couple of big fights on the undercard. It's a great weekend for boxing, and we will be looking at the big fights. Other than AJ and Pulev, we're looking at Martin Bakole versus Sergey Kuzmin, Hughie Fury versus Mariusz Wach, and we'll also have a few words about Lawrence Okolie and with his opponent obviously withdrawing, so he's having to have another opponent come in. But nevertheless, it's a decent card with decent fighters on, and we will start with Martin Bakole and Sergey Kuzmin, which is it's a pretty decent heavyweight scrap. Both have identical records, 15 wins, 1 loss each. Both lost to the same person in Michael Hunter. I'm just curious, David, just give me your, out of the two, who do you think is the better fighter?
It's a tough one to call, mate. To be honest, I've seen more of Bakole. He's been obviously more visible on matchroom cards, but I think they're very similar, at a very similar level. They've both fought at similar level opponents. Just based on watching them, I'd go Bakole. I think that looks really promising. He obviously had his defeat to Michael Hunter, and there's no disgrace in that. I think Michael Hunter is a very good heavyweight. But I'm really happy they put this fight on. It's not the most attractive one to the casual fan, but I think it's a really well-matched scrap, that.
It really is. People will understand, but, if they do, they tune in to watch AJ and they think, I'll watch a couple of the warm-up fights. I'm hoping that people catch this one because it's really, people want to see action, and that's what people want to see in boxing. Watch this fight, do you know what I mean? This is the one to watch. It's just guaranteed war. I mean, Bakole, I really like Bakole. I mean, he's been around for a while in terms of being sparring with the best. He's one of AJ's main sparring partners. A lot of people rate him really highly in the business. And the loss he did take against Michael Hunter, it came at a time when he was going through some personal issues. I can't remember what the official story was, but I don't know if someone had died quite close to him, or there was something that he wasn't going to take the fight, but he did, and then he lost, with poor prep because of what happened. So he's looking at having that rematch again after this. He really wants it. And that's probably something you can see happen because Michael Hunter's dying to fight anyone. But I really think his wins over Mariusz Wach, he stopped him, which not many people have. He stopped Kevin Johnson, only one of 3 people ever to stop him. And yeah, he's come through the ranks, and he was a lot more competitive in the Michael Hunter fight than Kuzmin was. Kuzmin just lost on all 3 cards. Just got jabbed off all night. Hunter was too big, too skillful for him. But Bakole went toe-to-toe with him and looked really good. And that was probably in his worst time in his life or in his whole career so far. So, and he's ever improving as well. So I'm gonna back Bakole, I think because Kuzmin hasn't fought anyone at all, really. I don't think I even know the best fighter on his resume looking at it now. It's David Price he did beat, but that was when David Price retired with a torn bicep, and it wasn't really, and the fight was sort of, I think David Price is up on 2 cards as well. So I'm going to go with Martin Bakole win. He don't really do points victories, so I'm going to go with a stoppage because I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. Kuzmin's a tough guy though, tough guy to get out of the ring, but 10 rounds, I think Bakole's hungry. I think he hits harder. I think he's a lot of power. So I'm going to go with late stoppage about Bakole, I think. You like yourself?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you there. I think Bakole will find the way through. I think he's a good, very heavy puncher. But it's a really good chance for him as well because Kuzmin's actually number 11 at WBA. So it's a massive fight for Bakole.
The winner of this fight,
27 years old.
The winner of this fight gets a WBC ranking.
Do they?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But even though he's on Kuzmin obviously seen as up there by the governing bodies, and a win in this one for Bakole, it's really going to elevate his profile even more. And he's only 27 years old, and he's made a lot of progress since his debut in 2014. and I think he's a real star for the future. Peter Fury and Anthony Joshua have both made comments this week saying that they believe that he's a future world champion.
I mean, they're very big statements, but they're people who know a lot about the game, so it says a lot about him. I think big win here, gets his profile up, gets him a ranking. And like I said, huge fights in 2021. There's so many fights on the Matchroom card. If he's not in a meaningful fight, he'll be in a very exciting fight with the amount of heavyweights on the roster. So, yeah, Bakole by late stoppage, I think, will be a fair assessment of that. Moving on to another heavyweight fight on the card, though, is Hughie Fury, obviously cousin of Tyson Fury, taking on Mariusz Wach, who is at this point 40 years old. He's a very seasoned pro. He probably is probably the most seasoned pro on the circuit, to be honest. I think he's been in with everyone. He's sparred with everyone. And yeah, a really good opponent for Hughie Fury, considering the time and everything. But obviously, Hughie Fury, 24 wins, 3 losses, 14 knockout wins in that time. Never been stopped, never been dropped. Very tough guy, like all the Furies are. And Mariusz Wach, 36 wins, 19 coming by way of knockout, 6 losses, and 3 of them coming by knockout loss. Well, I just wanted to gauge your thoughts on Hughie Fury, to be honest. Just try and sum him up quite quickly. Just what do you think of him, his career so far, and what his potential could be?
I think I'm a big fan of him. Great attitude. He said he's had his 3 losses there, but his 3 losses have come against top-level opponents. Fought was in Pulev, Parker, and Povetkin, who are 3 of the best heavyweights out there. I did question his punching power for a bit, and I think maybe as he's very young still, and as he grows up a bit and gets a little bit stronger in the ring, obviously Peter Fury is saying that he's starting to get his man strength now. So, but I like him. He's a really slick boxer, really similar to Tyson. Really slick. Obviously been fighting for a young age. Knows the ring very well, and I think because of his age and the way that he's fighting, he can go on to have a long, very successful career. I really do believe that.
Yeah, I got to agree. I think he's a really good boxer. He might be one of the best heavyweight boxers, technically, to be honest, the way he moves. I don't think many people are gifted with that in the heavyweight division. That's why Tyson stands out so much. But yeah, I think he moves incredible. And he's been fighting for a young age. He's got that gypsy mentality that he will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. But I think that's been a negative in his column because he didn't have to fight. Didn't have to fight them anytime, any place. He could have waited because he was so young. And he was a bit raw for me, just a little bit raw. And again, he's had that experience now. You can look at the other way. He's had that experience, and going forward now, he should be able to think that I've been there. I've been to Bulgaria. I've gone toe to toe with Parker. I've nearly won a world title. And now he should be thinking, all right, I need to learn from that. And I think he needs to add that punching into his game, that punch power, because he's talked about it for a long time. And the last fight he had when he knocked out Pavel Sauer, I think, he looked hard, he looked strong then, even though it was a low-level opponent. Yeah. Before that fight, all the talk was, I'm going to learn to punch more, learn to punch harder, more regularly, rather than just moving. Hopefully we can see that come into his game here. But Mariusz Wach is a very tough guy. He's 6'7.5". 6'7.5" inches. He's got the reach advantage, high advantage over Hughie Fury. He's 40 years old though, and he's got a lot of miles on the clock, so that says a lot about him. He went 12 rounds with Klitschko in his heyday. That was 8 years ago. Povetkin stopped him late, and Jarrell Miller stopped him, and of course Bakole stopped him. But Dylan White went 10 rounds of him, and he's coming off a win against another seasoned heavyweight, Kevin Johnson. So I do think that Mariusz Wach is just here to make up the numbers because he is obviously very old, very seasoned, done a lot of rounds. But if Hughie Fury wins by knockout, will you be surprised?
I'll be surprised because he's a very tough man, Wach. Obviously, he's got the 6 losses, but again, another one who's fought the best all the way through. And I remember his fight out in Saudi against Dylan White, and Dylan White wasn't even in the best shape there, but he hit some bombs. He really can take a shot. It's almost like they're really going to ask the question of Hughie Fury and his punching power. Obviously, we've seen it develop a bit against Pavel Sauer, but yeah, it's a question over Hughie Fury's punching power, and there's definitely not a question about Wach's chin. So if Fury does knock him out, then I think it makes a big statement, and it's really positive for his career. He start to show that he can get people out of there. Obviously, he's got his 14 wins by knockout already, but when he's moving into these big fights, he needs a bit punching power as well as being this slick boxer. Because Tyson has had that about him early on in his career where he'd already do a points job, and obviously he's done that on Wilder. He hammered Wilder out with his punching power, and if he can do that, I really think that you've got another one there. Who's, for me, a cert heavyweight champion with the timing. He's so young. Imagine the experience he'll have when the Furies and Joshuas and Wilders move on.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't really see him stopping him. I don't know if he has the power to do that. Maybe hopefully we'll see a change to Fury and he'll be able to put it on him a bit more. If he does, he might get a stoppage, but I can't ever see him putting him down. I can see a stoppage potentially, maybe working him. But the way he fights, he jabs and moves, and if he does do that, it'll be quite a boring fight, and he should come through comfortably on points. But I do want to see him have a go because Mariusz Wach is, he's big. He's quite slow now. Have a go at him. Do you know what I mean? He'll be able to build up a very sizable lead and then have a go mid to late rounds and see if you can get him out of there. And hopefully we see that, and then he can move on again to another big 2021. We've been saying that a lot recently about everyone, but it's true. There'll be a very big 2021. But just a quick word on Lawrence Okolie before we move on to the big one. Obviously, he was in line to fight for the WBO International Cruiserweight title. I don't know if he's not fighting for it now, is he? Because the opponent that's come in isn't in the top 15. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's not in the top 15. Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit cheeky, to be honest, by Eddie Hearn trying to get somebody in from the top 15. Because if you look at like the heavyweight top 15 rankings, there's some people in there. Say if say in imaginary world Dylan White was fighting for the vacant title and he picked out someone really low down who's like no one really knows who he is, and because there are people in the heavyweight rankings, and then he just goes and beats when he's a world champion. I think that's a bit cheeky on their side, trying to get a world title without having to fight Glanaki, who was a very, very tough opponent for Okolie. But obviously, it's still a decent fight. The guy's unbeaten. Don't know a lot about him. He's 19-0 with one draw. 29 years old. I mean, hasn't really been in many big fights so far, but seems like a little durable opponent for Okolie to keep him ticking over. He gets a lot of stick at Okolie, but he has improved continuously over the last few years, and getting the stoppage in his last win against for the European title. It was a brutal stoppage. You know what I mean? He only took like 1-2 punches, and his opponent was absolutely all over the place, and he was unbeaten as well. So I like to see him fight Glanaki in 2021. Hopefully, make that fight as soon as possible. And that's about it really. Not much to say more on him. I think there'll be he'll probably get a stoppage win against his opponent this weekend. But apart from that, we'll just draw a line under it and move on. And move on to the big one, which is of course AJ versus Pulev. Anytime Anthony Joshua fights or any of the top stars in the world fight, it's a big occasion. Doesn't matter who they're fighting. It's a decent matchup. We should have seen this in 2017, but we didn't. And Carlos Takam stepped in for Pulev after he pulled out due injury. A lot of talk this week about Pulev and AJ overlooking him, thinking about the Andy Ruiz situation. It's sort of the same old talk. Do you think AJ's overlooking him, or do you think he's here to do a number on him?
I think there's a different feel around at this time. I feel that he's really got his head on Kubrat Pulev because he doesn't want another spur. He knows what he could be setting up here. He knows he'd be setting up one of the biggest fights for his legacy. And I think he's showing all the right signs. There's obviously going to be talk around it no matter what. But I think with Wilder, it was a lot more outspoken. They were talking about numbers and offers, and it was a bit volatile. Whereas this is a bit more under the carpet. It's much quieter, and I think it'll suit Joshua. I don't think he's going to slip up like that again. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think so either, especially with it being on home soil as well. He knows what's in line. Everyone knows what's in line. He's been, I think Eddie Hearn's talked about the Fury fight more than he's talked about the Pulev fight, to be honest, which is typical of a promoter, especially of Eddie Hearn. But looking at the fight, I mean, Pulev's a very seasoned professional. I mean, 28 wins, one loss to Klitschko in his prime, getting absolutely brutally stopped. But he had a go against Klitschko. He awoken the beast, which in that fight, and he paid the price for it by going down a few times. Pretty brutal knockouts looking back at them. I was looking back at them today. When I first saw, I talked about this fight before the pandemic. And I really thought that Pulev was tailor-made for Joshua to just go through him, for Joshua just to get there, start teeing off, his age, his size. I think AJ, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's quicker, he's younger. He's got the skills to get him out of there. And him and Klitschko are pretty similar builds and pretty similar styles. So I thought he would absolutely just steamroll him in about 3-4 rounds. And then, you watch the pre-fight, the talk, and then you spend a lot more time looking at Pulev and who he's fought and stuff. And obviously he's beaten a lot of decent names, Derek Chisora, 2016, Kevin Johnson, Hughie Fury, and and a couple of other people when, back in 2012 who are all finished now, but at the time they were, they're all pretty much unbeaten. Like Alexander Dimichenko was 32-1 and Alexander Usnov was 27-0 as well. So at the time they were probably good wins, but obviously that was just before I really got into boxing. So you can't really think of those things. And he hasn't really done well in the last few years in terms of performance-wise to say that he's going to cause AJ problems. But I will say that he has got a fantastic jab. He beat Hughie Fury with his jab when he fought him. And to be honest, I think he's going to do that. It's going to be a little bit of a boxing match for 2-3 rounds. And I think AJ will put it on him. And I think we'll probably see him get him out in there, in under 6. Would you agree to say the same?
Yeah, I think you've said it. Pretty much summed that all that up there, mate. Pulev, I think he's going to have a go. He's 39 years old. He's not going to get a shot again after this. So I think he will have a go, and I think he probably believes that he's probably a more rounded boxer than Joshua, but I think it's going to be hard for him. As you said, I think he is almost tailor-made. You look at the Klitschko loss, and it was brutal. Klitschko was too strong, too big, and just teed him off. And after, even though Pulev came to have a go, he couldn't lay a glove on Klitschko as it went towards the end of 5. So I think it'll almost be the same outcome as that. But it's a tough opponent. Tidy operator with his boxing. Obviously, recently went to the US with Aaron, so he's travelled around a bit. Last 2 fights. But as I said, it's last chance saloon. That makes him dangerous. But I think AJ will get the job done on him and set up the big fight everyone wants to see.
Yeah, I think it could be really tough for Pulev. I think he just has to have a go, to be honest. He's been talking very well. He's been in front of the camera probably more in 3 days than he's ever been in front of a camera in his life with the build up on Sky and Matchroom. He's not had a second to rest, but he looked good. I mean, maybe he's been waiting for an opponent to step up to that level to fight someone of higher level to maybe bring the best out of him. We never know because he's been fighting people who are relatively low level, not top 10 fighters for a while now. And when he's gone up against slightly better opponents, Chisoras, Hughie Furies, he's looked like a class above. So maybe we'll see. Hopefully see a really good fight. I mean, I'd like to see AJ stop him. Like for as a fan, I'd like to see it go, get a little bit of our money's worth, and see Pulev have a go, maybe worry Joshua a little bit, and then Joshua gets him out in there in under 10 rounds. Later on, it'd be nice to see that as a fan. But I don't see AJ coming in and just doing him in 1-2 rounds. I think he'll just soak up the occasion just a little bit and just get his eye in a little bit, because it will be tough to get in amongst Pulev with that jab. So I think we will see a pretty decent affair. I think we'll get our money's worth, and on the whole card as well. I think you're going to get the money's worth of whatever it is for the pay-per-view price, to £25 or whatever it is.
25, yeah.
Yeah, and you got other people on the undercard as well, like Florian Marku as well. Florian Marku, good fight, good up and coming fighter in the low divisions, very aggressive, and a couple of other names sprinkled in there as well. So it's a really decent card, to be fair. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm hoping I can watch it uninterrupted on Saturday when we feet up with a few beers. So I'll look forward to that. And yeah, we'll be looking forward to. We're looking at AJ wins with probably a stoppage or knockout. We're looking at Martin Bakole coming through with a late stoppage, and Hughie Fury probably by unanimous decision on points. And yeah, some decent fights just to nearly round off the year. Next weekend is a big one all round, but for now, this is the second to last of the year, and we're going out of a bang. So look forward to that, of course, and that'll be on Sky Sports from 6:00 on Saturday night. Thanks very much for joining me again, David, and we'll be back on Monday to review all the fights and review all the action and look to the future after these fights. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you then.